Firstly, let's start the right way. We'd like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional custodians of the land upon which Nightingale Ballarat stands. I'd also like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, where I'm broadcasting from today. And we pay our respects to their elders past and present, and to all First Nations peoples of Australia. We acknowledge their continued and unceded connection to country and culture. Nightingale Ballarat. And, what an incredible place, right? And, why is it important what we've done there? And I think that, in the last 20 years, we've seen Ballarat's population grow by about 40%. And then the next 20 years, it looks like it's going to do that again. So kind of an 80% growth in their population over a 40-year period. And it's probably no surprise to you as architects that the type of houses that are getting built, or the type of people that are there, are generally in, there's an older demographic there, also a younger demographic, but in households of 1 to 2 people. But nearly all of the housings are 3 or 4 bedroom houses. So there's a mismatch between, housing needs and what's being delivered by the market. And then we see that play out, obviously, with urban sprawl, and just like the west of Melbourne, this is the west of Ballarat, a suburb called Delacombe. Used to be all agricultural land, like good farming land. That was 2010. This is 2022. So the City of Ballarat have identified this kind of massive problem with Ballarat in its growth trajectory. And they've written a new urban strategy, a lot like Postcode 3000, to try and bring people back into the centre of town. And interestingly, they looked back to their past and looked at what was Ballarat like, it boomed in the 1850s with the gold rush. You have some incredible money in town. It's a big, beautiful city with big, grand streets. And by 1900, there were cable cars in the street. So, and the streets were used by people, and people lived above the shops. They lived in the centre of town. And so there was more people living in the centre of Ballarat in 1900 than what there were in 2000, 100 years later. So it turned into a donut city. Now it's dominated by cars and car parking, and it's consistently the thing that, that people talk about. And what we're seeing in Ballarat, and the City of Ballarat have identified this, is that the wrong housing is being built in the wrong location. And so what Nightingale Ballarat tries to do is to build the right housing in the right location. There was one apartment built about 10 years ago, and it was kind of handled by a local builder developer. It was handled really poorly. It didn't sell, it struggled to resell, and it kind of killed the apartment market. I think what's really important about this is what it says is that density can be done well, and it can be done right. And there is a different opportunity to live in a different housing size closer to the centre of town. So the cross there shows where it is. It's close to the train. Sturt Street is just 2 streets to the south. That's where that photo was taken in 1900. So it's kind of the main street through there. It's close to the Gov Hub, Ballarat College, the hospital. It's really, really well located, and you can walk everywhere. There are kind of 5 key moves in our approach here. So there was an old lawnmower factory there, which covered 100% of the site. So it was just a concrete slab on everything, no deep root planting. So this all used to be kind of residential. In about 1900, it was changed to industrial in 1950s. And so when it was changed to industrial, everything was kind of paved over. What we've done is we've made sure we hold back from the western side to allow some deep root planting, to increase some canopy cover, and then push a little pocket back from the eastern side on Davey Street, which is quite a narrow street, to provide a little kind of pocket park, if you will, a place for a tree to kind of hang out over the street, and some relief between our building and the building immediately to the north, which is a pretty cool building. In that kind of courtyard space that we open up into, we worked with the local community, the local historians, and they kind of went back through and found the original photos of the original building with the original signage on there. And we worked with a local sign writer to put that back on the building, kind of talking back to the history of that building. And then we just kind of tried to really strengthen the street wall of that building to the north, and we married our parapet with that. So just to make a really clear kind of line about what the future of Davey Street could be. Like, if you go to do a site visit, Davey Street's a pretty tough street. And the one good building there is the building immediately to the north of us. And we're trying to kind of, come off that and come south and try and, really build some street wall and some enclosure in that street. We want to respect our past. And so not just in the parapet, but obviously kind of, a broader reference to the boom style classical architecture, happening through kind of the 1850s through the 1910s. Embrace the broader context, the way that we look out and grab views out to the east. Make sure that we were responding to a demographic that had historically only had freestanding housing and cottages. And for them, we wanted to make sure that, each of them has a front door, that there's windows, that everything's cross-ventilated. So it feels as much like a house as it can. So we've got 100% cross-ventilation through every apartment. And then again, just making sure we pull off the west to allow deep root planting, and then this kind of big courtyard in the middle to allow some other planting through there. There's a rooftop on the south side here. It's protected from the northern wind. And then on the northwestern corner of the building is a rooftop communal area that's glazed. We used a lot of we built with local builders and local craftspeople. So the joinery is built locally, the windows are manufactured locally, the precast is made locally, and that's the highest percent of cement replacement that they've used in the precast. So we've got an average of about 40% cement replacement across the project. The metalwork was made locally. All of our materials, or as much as possible, are low carbon local materials. So we use recycled Ballarat red bricks that were probably made at the Selkirk brick factory 3 minutes down the road. We recycle the timber flooring from buildings in Ballarat. The tapware is made in the north of Melbourne. It's carbon neutral tapware made from brass. The lighting is made in Fairfield in Melbourne. And then the building itself is carbon neutral. Carbon neutral in operations. It's 100% electric. It's got PV on the roof, but it's also signed up to buy 100% green power. We've got a CO2 heat pump, which does the domestic hot water and the hydronic heating, and we're in a heating climate in Ballarat. And our average NatHERS rating is not 6 stars, but 8 stars, which is good because we're in Ballarat. And that's it. And then I've got some, some context plans and some plans at the back end if you want to talk to that.